Thank you all for coming to the East Longmeadow Public Library. Is this the first visit to East Longmeadow Public Library for most of you? Well, welcome to our lovely library. We're very excited to have Nancy Crochiere here to share her new book, and I hope everybody enjoys tonight. And if you want to come back to the library, you're welcome to come in. We're part of the CW Mars Consortium, so you can use your cards here if you have any CW Mars card. We have lots of programs. And next week we have a improv show coming up, and we just had a great summer reading kickoff yesterday. We had over 300 kids running around our parking lot. Wow. So today it's a little calmer. This is nothing compared to yesterday. So I'm going to turn it over to Nancy. I think most of you know her, and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is really a lovely, overwhelming response. Thank you to the East Longmeadow Public Library for hosting me, for Maura for doing all the legwork. We really appreciate it. I have a few other people that I just want to thank really quickly. My friend Tracy Plass, who has, we met in kindergarten, her cooperative kindergarten. Did anybody else go to cooperative kindergarten? No, okay, in East Longmeadow here. Tracy's mother famously referred to me as the little girl with the buck teeth, and the nice little girl with the buck teeth. That's right. The nice is very, very important. My mother referred to Tracy as the little girl who was trying to mother everybody in the entire kindergarten, and and that is maybe not the word mother, but that is exactly Tracy, because she takes care of everybody in the world, basically. Tracy went on one of my road trips to Memphis with me. She read my manuscript a couple times and had some great comments, and she's made posters for this event, so she is still basically taking care of me. I wanted to mention my friend Pam Richardson also read my manuscript and had some great comments early on. I just wanted to thank family who is here. I have on both sides of Paul's family. There are Crochieres here. My mother-in-law, Mary Ryder. Where are you, Mary? Mary said, "Is there anything I could do for your reading?" And I said, "Oh, you want to make a batch of chocolate chip cookies?" There are 57 varieties of chocolate chip cookie, or different cookies and brownies over there. Please, if you do nothing else, please go over there and eat afterwards. But my mother-in-law is the one who takes care of the other half of the world. Tracy and Mary are basically. I wanted to thank my sister is here, and my brother-in-law, Carol and John Dunlop. They've been cheering me on for all the years that I've been writing this, as well as the rest of the Dunlop family. And I wanted to ask, there were some people here with Bay Path connections. Anybody have Bay Path connections? Raise your hand. There are several. So look around, hold up your hand. I'm never going to be able to connect you, but connect with each other afterwards, okay? Because you all have a connection to Bay Path, which is where my sister worked for many years and went to school. Any ELHS, I can't speak, ELHS Spartans here? Spartans in the room? Oh, I like this. All right, go Spartans. So, order of business for tonight. I'm going to talk about the book for about 15 minutes, and I'm going to read a really brief passage, like 3 pages, and then we'll have a question and answer period. Hopefully you have questions. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask myself questions, and I do a lot of softball questions when I ask myself things. Nancy, how did you think of interweaving in a brilliant way the 3 that sort of thing? You don't want to hear my questions, so, ask your own. Afterwards, as I said, refreshments over there. Dr. Basile, there's a seat. Just to really, make you feel embarrassed. And Tracy is going to, if anybody wants a book, you're welcome to. I'm happy to sign it for you. Here's the deal. I am at a certain age at this point, and even though I know exactly who you are, I will call you Lisa or some other name that is not yours. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long I've known you. It could, Mitzi, I'm going to call you Joan regardless. So give your name to Tracy, even if you insist, oh, she knows who I am. Don't risk it. Under pressure, I completely will call you Lisa. So, where did this all begin? I've been joking, but it's the truth, honestly. That my desire to write started when I was 10 years old in Mrs. Bayevsky's 5th grade class. Does anybody remember Mrs. Bayevsky? She was over at Mapleshade School, and I wrote a poem called "A Thermometer's View of Winter," and she praised that. She didn't just praise that poem; she made me write it like make a whole bulletin board out of it, and for a shy little girl. Nice, but shy little girl with an overbite, that was as much praise as you could possibly imagine. That was enough to set me off on a career where I wanted to be a writer. So, at age 12, 13, 14, I started writing in books, writing notebooks, various ideas. And so you're thinking, okay, Nancy, you were doing that at age, 14. What happened in the 20 years since then? And yeah, I've been joking to people, that I recently turned 55, and then more recently turned 65. Well, life happened, is basically, I had, Paul and I started our life together with zero money, and we had to work. We raised 2 children, and so it was hard to find time to write novels, which was always my dream. I did write a column for years and years, a humor column that was published in a local newspaper chain up in northeastern Massachusetts. It was like a family-based Irma Bombeck type column, and that sort of satisfied my need to write for a while, and I did collect some of those columns into a book called The Mother Lode. That was the name of the column, the title of it. But my girls went to college, and eventually they grew up. It was because it was a family-based column. My family was material, and they knew my children understood they were material, and that's just. But by the time my youngest went to college, I realized that I was running out of material, and so I decided to finally turn my attention to this lifelong dream and decided to write a novel. Of course, it took longer than I expected. You can't just, unfortunately, string together all the 700 word pieces that you were writing for all those years and make it into a novel. But so it took me about 5 years to write, and 3 years to find an agent and a publisher and get it published. But here we are. So it's called, the title is Graceland. Graceland, subtitle a novel, because there are a lot of books that are called Graceland in one way or another. It's if I'm going to give you the one-sentence description of what it's like, and if anybody's a writer, you know about elevator pitches and log lines. You have to be able to describe your book in a line. It's the story of a single mom who is forced to chase her Elvis-obsessed mother and her pink-haired teenage daughter to Memphis to stop them from uncovering a long-held secret. So that's the storyline in a sentence. It is not just a road trip; it's a road trip chase. So it's a fast-paced story, fun read, meant to be humorous, and it's so 3 women's mother, daughter, grandmother, all on this road trip together, or not together, but chasing each other to Memphis, Boston to Memphis, I should say. And all of them they're at odds with one another. They have their own agendas, but each of them in their own in her own way, is searching for self-acceptance, forgiveness, and grace. So that's where the title came from. I thought it would be a fun idea to have a character who was like my old, my grandmother character, Olivia Grant, who was Elvis obsessed and wanted to go back to Graceland. But Graceland, to me, was also just a really great metaphor for people searching for that kind of self-acceptance and forgiveness. So, let's see. Talk to you just a little bit about the characters. Olivia Grant is a washed-up soap opera actress. She played the villainess on a long-running, 45 years on a soap opera as the character Andromeda. And, you know, during all those years on the soap opera, she did what one does on soap operas. She was kidnapped by pirates, and she dated a drug kingpin, and she gave birth to an alien baby, and all the things that happen on soap operas these days. But Olivia is now, her soap opera ended eventually. She's getting older. She's now, in the last year or so, she has COPD. She's on oxygen. And Olivia has all her life been obsessed with Elvis. She had a date with Elvis in the past. And she's, the one thing she wants still in her life to do is to see Graceland again before she dies. But she needs help. She doesn't drive. She has the oxygen, and so she needs her daughter Hope to take her. Well, Hope, who is a 40-ish single mom, would love more than anything to be able to please her mother. She's always felt all her life that as an introvert and kind of a people pleaser, she's always longed to please her flamboyant soap star mother, and she has never quite felt able to. So, you know, the problem is that Memphis is the one place that Hope can't go. She can't go back to her hometown because she left there 18 years ago with a secret. That secret involved her daughter. I mean, when she left town, she was distraught, she was pregnant, she had signed a secret agreement never to reveal the father and never to return to Memphis. So Hope can't take her mother. She has to say no. Olivia has never learned the word no. So Olivia then turns to Hope's daughter, Dylan, who is the 16-year-old, pink-haired, impulsive activist teenager. And Olivia talks Dylan into taking her to Memphis with the one thing that Dylan can't resist, which is that the promise that in Memphis she can finally meet her mystery father. So that's the premise, that's the setup for the novel. They take off together, and Hope has no choice but to follow because she knows that they're planning to reveal her secret, and she knows that if the secret is revealed, it's going to be a disaster for the entire family. So there you go, and believe it or not, that's only like 5 pages into the thing. That's just the setup. So yeah, it is fast-paced. I've had people who have read it so far who told me, you know, I couldn't put it down. I read it in an afternoon, or I read it in a couple days, which is a lovely thing. That's exactly what you want to hear as an author. That, but it's fun. It also the book is meant to be humorous. It also treats some issues that are serious, and it opens certain issues up for discussion. So it doesn't, although it's a comic novel, it doesn't trivialize certain issues. You know, as an English major, and I was an English major and a graduate student in English. Of course, there are themes, there are symbols if you care to look for them, but it's. You know, the basic theme that I wanted to write about is the book is it's a story of identity. It's a story about trying to be who we are versus who we believe other people want us to be. And all of the characters on their journey to Memphis are dealing with that particular theme. Yeah, let me just read a couple pages now. I think I can do this. I was telling Tracy that I was going to joke that there's something that authors of a certain age always need when they're going to do a reading, and I was planning to pull out a tiara. It turns out you cannot buy a tiara in East Longmeadow. For anybody who's listening, there's a market need here, and nobody is filling it. So I think I can do this without my glasses. So here we go. This is chapter 1, Hope. 2 days before my mother and daughter disappeared, my mother did something entirely out of character. She asked for my help. She took her time, of course. Say what you want about my mother, the woman won't be rushed. Even after I'd rinsed our lunch plates and tucked the leftover pad thai into her fridge, she refused to explain the message she'd left at my office, saying she needed to see me urgently. It wasn't until I'd sunk deep into her overstuffed sofa and she'd handed me a sloshing cup of tea that I fully appreciated her genius. My only escape would be to sip my way out. Finally, though, she seemed to be coming to the point. I could tell because she'd moved to the window. My mother never plays a scene without using light and shadow to her advantage. If you Google old episodes of The Light Within, you'll notice how, before delivering a key line, she lifts her chin and cocks her head toward the light. For years, my father and I debated whether her movement was instinctive or if she blocked it out in advance. Either way, whenever Olivia Grant is about to deliver a show-stopping line, a window is invariably to her right. And so, with her signature chin lift and head tilt, my mother shared what was so urgent. Before I die, she said, I want to see Graceland again. I didn't mean to snort. Never in my 40 years had I made fun of my mother's obsession with Elvis, at least not to her face. She'd simply caught me off balance, and I laughed to cover my panic. Graceland? Graceland, for God's sake? Just the thought of Memphis made my stomach churn. Leave it to my mother to ask for the one thing I absolutely couldn't do. Which part do you find amusing, Hope, she asked, Graceland or my dying? Mom, I said, determined to steer the conversation away from Memphis, you're not dying. She turned, and as if on cue, the green tube connected to her oxygen dispenser caught on the edge of the coffee table, yanking the cannula from her face. I had to give her points for that one. Effective use of props. We're all dying, she said, repositioning the prongs under each nostril. I'm just doing it faster than the average 79-year-old. With the afternoon sun backlighting her profile, my mother was still stunning. Snow-white hair pulled back into a chignon, nose long and thin with a hint of distinctive crookedness. I started to protest, but she waved me off. No, this isn't self-pity. I'm explaining why we need to do this Memphis trip soon. Right away, in fact. I bent forward and gulped the tea, scalding my mouth. I needed to end this conversation, quickly, decisively, for all time. My mother didn't realize what she was asking. I understand you want to see Graceland again, Mom, I said, substituting want for need the way I did with my daughter, Dylan, when she needed Lady Gaga tickets. I just can't take you anytime soon. Work is out of control. This wasn't the real reason, but had the advantage of being true. The entire marketing department at EduLearn was putting in crazy hours. I couldn't afford time off, not after I'd missed a key meeting 2 weeks ago when Dylan pulled that stunt at school. Let's plan a trip for later this year, I said, not specifying where, maybe in the fall. My mother clapped a hand to her forehead. You're missing the point. It's getting harder for me to travel now that I'm tethered to this, she wagged a finger at the tubing circling her face, this cannoli. cannula. She knew the word. It was her idea of a joke. Whatever, she flung a hand into the air as if playing to the folks in the mezzanine. My mother had smoked 3 packs of Camels a day for most of her life, despite my father's pleas for her to quit. She'd known the risks. And yet, when her new specialist at Mass General repeated that she needed the oxygen day and night, even in the shower, I'd watched her close her eyes as if betrayed. Et tu, nicotine? Always good to drop your notes and then you don't even have them in order. Okay, I think we're good. So, yes, as I said, the theme is a main theme is identity, and one of the characters that, a secondary character is Hope's cousin and best friend, George, who proudly cross-dresses as Jordan. And Jordan has dealt with these issues in her life, so she makes a great foil for Hope on the journey because she has embraced her own truth and is comfortable with her own self. She is able to push Hope and give her, feedback. Sometimes they get into a little sparring match, but she's able to help move Hope towards her journey. And as I said, it's a similar journey that some of the other characters are dealing with as well. Olivia has been an actress for many years. So many years she's played the villainess that she's kind of inhabited that body, and the sort of physical reaction you have when you are an actress and you play a character for that long. It's hard to leave sometimes. So Olivia's in the process of deciding sort of who am I now that I'm no longer this actress, and what is there left for me to do in my life. So Graceland has gotten some nice feedback. It was recently named a summer read by Deep South magazine. And then next week, I expect it will be banned in the Deep South. And unless I've lost more cards, I think that's it. I'm happy to take questions from the audience, if anybody has one. Yes.
When is the movie coming out? I think it is hysterical.
The book is always better.
Well, thank you. I would love for the movie to come out. We have not sold the film rights yet. I love to tell people the story because it's just a story. Whenever you talk about film rights, I was saying this to John and Julie earlier, people look at things and sometimes they even buy books or material to make into a movie, and then it never happens. But my agent, when I was at a low point about something, I think she was giving me a little, like a little treat, and she said, "Well, John Krasinski's studio is reading Graceland right now." So it's all it is a great story, and as far as I know, John Krasinski hasn't expressed interest, but I like those stories. I want more of those stories. So thank you for asking. Yes, Pam.
Not to belabor the movie rights line, but if this does become a movie, what role do you intend on playing in it?
Teenager.
Yes, of course, being only 20 years older than. Yeah, I think I see myself as, remember what Alfred Hitchcock used to do in all his movies? He would like subtly appear in the background. Yeah, that's my dream. That's my one of my hobbies is acting as an extra in TVs and movies, and sometimes you get seen, sometimes you don't get seen, but I like to joke to people that it's true. I was on the Academy Awards there was the movie Joy that I was in. It was not even that good a movie, but Jennifer Lawrence was nominated for something, and they showed a clip. All of a sudden, the clip comes on the Academy Award, and there I am, bent over. Great view of me. My best side, yeah.
Were you in downtown Springfield yesterday?
Was I in downtown Springfield yesterday?
Yeah, they were going to go. Yeah.
Oh, were they? Oh, I didn't know about that. No, I wasn't. Yes.
Without naming names, were any of your characters modeled off folks you know or composites of people you know?
Not specifically, no. I mean, I really actually, because this was my first novel, I really wanted it to be as far from my experience as possible because I didn't want people reading that into it. I guess you could say that Hope has a boss who she's also not pleasing, and he maybe is a composite of all the kind of jerky managers in publishing that I may have had, and there are certainly stories in the book that each of you, many of you who know me will recognize. There's little parts of the book that I took from stories of my life and our life, but. Hope a little bit comes from me because I was sort of an introvert, people pleaser who, Carol and I have a middle sister, Jean, who was always Miss Bubbly and, always making my parents, regaling them with funny stories at the dinner table. And I just wanted to be her, I just wanted to be like that, and that, that wasn't me. But that went into the character of Hope, yeah.
Could you recite a little bit of a thermometer's view of winter?
We thermometers are very bold, especially when it's extremely cold. We make it through the winter, though, even though our blood gets very low. I could do it all, but I want to leave you wanting more. Thank you for asking.
I was
Yes.
just going to say, taking from what you had just said, Olivia and Dylan, I would imagine for Olivia, somebody that's on oxygen, maybe you know somebody that's oxygen or you didn't know, I mean, you would definitely need to make a lot of observations and all the nuances that you had in her character, but especially Dylan, who's a 16-year-old, pink-haired, all kinds of social media, and everything that's going on right now. You really had to make some incredible observations on what 16-year-olds are doing these days.
Research, yes. Yes. Two things. I knew a woman in Newburyport at my church who was on oxygen, and I spent several afternoons with her observing and hearing her, talk about her challenges and what it was like for her. She sadly passed away a few years ago, but her daughter came to my reading in Newburyport, and it was great to remember Betty Boop, as we called her. But yes, Dylan was probably the 16-year-old teenager was probably the most challenging character for me. I had two teenage daughters, so that helps. You know how teenagers talk to you. You're going out to dinner and they'll say, "You're going to wear that?" Things like that. So I knew something about how teenage girls acted, but I didn't realize it until late in the game. But I had totally lost track of the slang of being a teenager now. I had incorporated stuff that our daughters said, and my daughter Rebecca recently said, "Oh my gosh, you thought that was current slang?" She's 30 now. Silly me, it seemed young to me. But so I did, I hired the daughter of a friend, to read through it and to give me current slang and also cultural references, things that. And I also checked with your daughter Emily on a thing or two. She was helpful. I was like, what would you think if, what would your friends say if? And I can't actually remember the specifics, but yeah, important to try to get that as correct as possible. So, yes, ma'am.
I was impressed at the way Dylan acted once she met her real family, when she met her father and the two sons, and how her whole self just transposed into a real vibrant, good character. I just thought that was a very nice part of it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. My mother-in-law, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I think she's quoted on the back somewhere. This is a wonderful novel.
Nancy, did the journey come first and then you fleshed out the characters, or did you fall in love with these characters before you developed the storyline?
I think the characters came first, and basically the conflict was where I started. I had this idea about a grandmother and a granddaughter who bonded. They're more alike, as happens sometimes. Sometimes you skip a generation with personality traits or physical traits. Sometimes there's a grandchild that seems more like a grandparent, and that's what I had in mind, that they bonded and they take off on some caper. This was in the early thinking parts. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I just said that they were going to take off together, and the mother was going to be, number one, worried, distraught, needing to stop them, and also just a little hurt, just a little left out of the fact that they get along so well together when she's always been struggling to please her mother and is currently struggling to please her teenage daughter, which we all know something about. Yeah.
Did you spend a lot of time in Memphis?
I did, yes. I went to Memphis 3 times over the course of researching the novel, and one of the times was doing the road trip. But it was very interesting because I think as a first-time novelist, I was anticipating being in groups of people like this, and it was really important for me to get certain things correct, which I think probably in the end I could have imagined, but I was insistent that, I needed to see what it looked like in a particular auditorium, or see what the frats looked like at the University of Memphis. So, there's my other friend who went with me to Memphis, and I'm driving down the road, and she's yelling out the window, where are the frats? Here we are, 2 women of a certain age. Can you show us where are the frats? And there was also a funny story about I decided not to give anything away. This is like a little tease. It's not giving anything away, but there's a scene in a jail cell in there, and I decided I wanted to see, what it was like inside a Memphis jail facility, as one does, as one does. And so I went to 201 Poplar, which is the Memphis facility, and I found a police officer there, sort of in the general area of where I thought I wanted to go, and he wasn't buying a word of the "I'm a writer" story. I would say, well, what would somebody have to do in order to get brought here from the Peabody Hotel? What would they have to do, to get arrested? And he's like, well, where's your friend now? No, you don't understand. I'm a writer, and I'm writing a novel, and I just was curious. Well, did they bring him in downstairs, or is it? No. So he really, probably for good reason that he didn't believe me. But yeah. So are we good with the questions anymore? Well, okay, all good. Thank you all so much for coming. It warms a debut writer's heart to see you all. If you like the book, please spread the word. I am convinced that that is the only way for books to get really popular is by word of mouth. If you have a book club, I bring wine. And I, you know, on the other hand, if you don't like it, yeah, you don't need to tell anybody. That's fine. Thank you.